Hi YouTube. Have you been working hard at your job, but not seeming to get any proportional rewards? I learned the hard way that working hard alone will not get you anywhere if you don't take into consideration the egos of the people around you and especially the people above you. Today we'll be talking about egos, master-apprentice relationships, and, in my opinion, the best rule from the book, The 48 Laws of Power: never outshine the master. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior. In your desire to please and impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite, inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. This is the first rule from the book 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. In my opinion, he is one of the most brilliant writers of this time. He describes a lot of very interesting phenomena related to the human psyche and very practically applied to everyday life, especially work life. And he taps into his own experience, but also a lot of historical stories. This specific rule is trying to warn you to realize, actually, that people are people and have egos. So your peers and especially your boss or bosses, your superiors. Robert Greene is trying to say that basically the higher you go in a hierarchy, the more self-conscious you become. So we have this image of managers or even like higher manager, vice presidents, CEOs, that they are so competent that they are also very confident. But as it turns out, the higher you get, the more insecure you become, because you start to worry, do people really think that you should be in that position? Do people respect you enough? Basically, if you're at the bottom of the hierarchy, you have nothing to lose. No one, like, you are a beginner and people view you as a beginner, right? So in that sense, you can never really fill their expectations. But as you get a step higher, for instance, you get a promotion, all of a sudden you might be in a position where people might wonder, okay, does that person really deserve to be in that position? And although also people really think about that, it starts to live its own life in your mind. So there's a high chance of you becoming more self-conscious about the things you do, the mistakes you make or might make, and how people view certain situations. So there's this basic rule of thumb that the higher someone is in the hierarchy ladder, the more self-conscious they probably are. And the more they need to reestablish that they are in the position because they actually deserve to be in that position. One thing I really love about this book is that it's also filled with nice historical examples of these rules to really speak to your imagination, so to say. The example that he gives in the book is a story of Louis XIV, who referred to himself as the Sun King. So he was actually in France at that time the most powerful person ever. Like, he could make decisions without anyone questioning him. He could have you executed just for looking strange at you. So he had infinite power, you can say. And he had this kind of financial minister who had the feeling that he was falling out of favor with Louis. And what he tried to do was organize the greatest party ever, and he invited the king. But what happened was that the party was so great that the king became self-conscious, thinking, hey, wait a second, these people like this guy more than me. And what happened was, instead of like falling back into favor, Louis accused him of stealing money, I believe it was, and put him in jail till the end of his life. So basically, just by stepping on the king's feet unknowingly, he found himself in prison for no good reason. He thought that he was doing the best thing to make the king feel good, but he fucked up. The second historical example where this rule is actually applied and the positive effect is shown is of Galileo, who is a well-known scientist, astronomer of that time. But you can imagine that there's not necessarily a lot of money to be made directly with astronomy because it doesn't result in anything that you could sell. So these people at the time were really relying on Patreons, or like people who were sponsoring them, let's say, rich people who thought that it might be interesting. And as Galileo discovered the moons of Jupiter, he was so smart as to name them after his biggest, most powerful Patreons, which were the Medici family. And they were so charmed by this that from that point on, he had no money problems at all anymore. And he could continue basically the rest of his life doing what he wanted to do. And it didn't even require him to dilute his own performance. Like, he still found it. It's his discovery. But just by such a simple act as to honor the people that also in a way enabled him to do this research and to do this discovery, he found himself in a very favorable position. So I read this book a while ago, and I tried to link the stories from the book and the lesson basically to my own experience. And I do realize now in hindsight certain things that happened to me that really relate to this and that I could manage to improve on. So I wanted to share that experience with you. I'm an ambitious person, and I try to work quite hard at my job. Also partially because I really enjoy what I do. But it can be quite demotivating if you work hard, show your results, and you feel like it's not really being valued, especially by your manager. I had a long period where I felt that my manager was only challenging me and putting roadblocks in my way, instead of trying to help me out and compliment me or to facilitate the work that I was doing. And it was only too late that I found out that my manager also has an ego, and also has ambitions, and also has a boss, and also has deliverables. So the thing that you need to realize is, in which situation is your manager or your boss? What do they need to deliver for them to look good? And how do they view you? Are you someone that is maybe making them look worse because of the work that you put in? Maybe not even directly, but let's say at some point your manager was in your position. And if you work so hard that it looks like you are working more than your manager did in that position, he might even unconsciously feel that you are challenging his position. And at the same time, if you are doing a lot of work that doesn't directly benefit him to get his deliverables done, he might also not be interested in that, at least not respond positively to it. That was really like an eye-opening realization for me to see that, all right, I actually completely ignored the goals and intentions of the person who is responsible for my end-year review and basically the gatekeeper to my career path. So the past 2 weeks, I have been trying to really focus on giving this the positive spin. So I was aware of this rule for a while, so I already tried to put it into practice in general, but the past 2 weeks I was trying to really implement that more consciously. And it was actually a good time for me because I also moved to a new group. I think it was a great opportunity for a fresh start. And the way that I tried to do that was, I'm not really into manipulating people or acting or having like a fake situation going on. I like to be honest, transparent, truthful, all these things. Also, Robert Greene said this, by the way, but I want to highlight it. You can think of all these things and rules as ways to manipulate people and to be basically a psychopath that just wants to move up. But I think it's more than that. You have to realize that these are just dynamics that happen. They exist whether you want it or not. And you don't have to be a complete fake actor. You can also just slightly tweak your behavior, stop making dumb mistakes that you can easily avoid if you're aware of it, and still work hard and get like triple the results simply by doing that. So that's what I aim to do. So just try to find out from the people that are working around me or also above me, what are actually their deliverables? What are their intentions? What are their aspirations? Do they want to stay in the current position and shine or make their life more easy? What was their previous position? So what kind of jobs are they experienced with? And yeah, how can I help them to deliver a better result for themselves? So really tapping into the idea of these are real people with goals and desires. It's not just me, the egocentric way of thinking that, okay, I have a goal, I have ambitions. If I work hard, I will get rewarded for it. No, you feel like you will get rewarded for doing stuff that is of value to other people. And if you are liked, if people like you around them, that's how you get to where you want to be. So I really try to apply it, and it's quite interesting if you try to step out of that egocentric way of thinking, the like me mindset, just the curiosity for the other person. Like, okay, what kind of work do you do on a daily basis? What are your deliverables? And also appreciate the work that they do. It's a big difference how people respond to you, because people love to talk about themselves. You can just way easier put the effort and the work that you do into the right task, because you just by asking the people what is important for you, you get the straight answer of, if you do this, you will help me. And other work might be interesting, but it's not going to directly affect me. If you know that from people, if you know it from enough people, then you know what work is important and what work is not so important. It was a really nice experience for me to do that. You can really see people light up if you ask them. And this ties in actually pretty nicely with another thing that I want to highlight, which is in any given situation, you can be in a teacher, student, or let's say master-apprentice kind of situation. It's a bit more complex than that, because you can be the master, you can be the apprentice, or you can be with a peer, so someone who is at the same level with you. But let's take the master-apprentice situation. If you are the apprentice or the student, your main position should be humbleness and learning. So you're trying to learn from the master, from the teacher. You're trying to assume that you know less of the topic than he or she does. And you have to be open to let the other people correct your mistakes. If you try to be in that mindset, if you try to really enact the archetype of the student, you will also find that you can learn a lot and people respond to you in a positive way, because often people like to talk, people like to teach what they know. Because if you can teach and someone likes to listen, you also feel heard and you feel valued, because people listen to what you have to say. That means you say something of value, which is a great thing. So people oftentimes respond very positively to you being in a student frame of mind. But there are also situations where it's actually required of you to be a teacher. So in my new position, I'm a bit more of a senior, in a senior position right now. It's actually required for me to also be a kind of teacher. That means you also have to perform in that sense. I actually have to tell people stuff they don't know and take on that role. It's always a tight balance. You cannot be teacher and student at the same time in the same crowd, but you can switch between these modes in different crowds. So you will always be in a situation where some people have something to teach to you, and in other situations you will teach to other people. And I think it's very important to try to link that to the fact that there are egos involved everywhere. And even sometimes if you are teaching someone, that person might feel like they're actually superior to you. So they don't want to be in the student position. They want to be the teacher. It's very tricky, and I don't want to pretend like I know what the answer to that is. It's just a thing to realize that basically teacher-student is a basic relationship archetype, especially on the work floor, that you might encounter. And you have to try to gauge which of the two your opponent, let's say, thinks they are, so that you can respond properly and play the role that you're required to play to influence their ego so that you can still get the results that you would like. Now, that part might require a little bit of acting or a little bit of manipulation in that sense, but I think it's relatively harmless. You're just being aware of other people's personality, ego, preference. And a very nice thing that like a nice quote or explanation from Robert Greene is also that if you see two people in a boxing ring and they fight, they punch each other, or one person punches the other person, you will not find that guy saying, "Hey, why did you punch me?" Because it's a boxing match, so you both realize that's part of the game. And I think this is similar the case. It's life, right? So there are certain rules and things that you can do. Don't take it personally. And there's another way to think about it, that you can say, I just want to work hard and get my results, or I just want to say what I think is right and people should listen. But that's in a way also just very immature, because that's just not how the world works. And you can throw a tantrum and scream and say what you want to say, but people will not listen. So that is the case, and you know that is the case. So if you still continue to do that, then maybe you don't really want to be successful or to have the outcome. Maybe you just want to throw a tantrum. By the way, I also feel that it's actually true that it's not that like I made a huge step in my career, but I did make a small step up. And I do feel also a bit self-conscious, like, am I actually okay to be in this role? And it's something you have to learn to deal with. You also have to grow into your position, of course, and get more comfortable with the task that you're required to do. But I can really see that the higher you get, probably the more pressure you get and the more insecure you could be about whether you're actually competent enough. So I also don't want to pretend like I know everything and I am preaching the answer to you. I was just trying to give you my perspective on the situation and how I'm trying to implement that into my daily life. So what are the key takeaways? Like I said, I don't think you should see it necessarily as hardcore manipulation. You're just trying to avoid making the obvious mistakes. An obvious mistake would be your boss lets you work on a certain project, you work super duper hard, get some nice results, present it somewhere, maybe even to higher management, and you fail to mention your manager in even just in the thank you at the end, or anywhere basically. It's just such an easy thing to do, to just thank that person for facilitating you to do that work, because there are a lot of things that maybe your manager does that you're not aware of. Just pulling them in to the spotlight can make all the difference. What I want you to take away from this are basically two things. If you accept that this is just the way that things work, people have egos, you as well, you will come probably into a position where you might go a step up and realize yourself that certain situations can trigger your ego in a negative way. Then you will really know it's true. Realize this, and that will by itself already enable you to stop making stupid mistakes. So try to give credit where credit is due, or even give a bit extra credit, even if it's not necessarily because these people did work, but because credit is free, basically. You can just give credit to your manager for letting you work on the project. It doesn't cost you anything, and it will actually benefit you a lot. And second, just tweak a little bit how you present yourself. You can actually try to step more into the student mindset and try to learn what other people's objectives and aspirations are. And you will find that whenever you make the decision to work on something, unconsciously you will take that along, and the results will be much, much more well received. And the pro tip advice that I have for you that works like a charm, and it's something so easy and also very fun to do, is just try in every conversation that you have with people, try to give them a genuine compliment. And that's something that is so funny and harmless that you cannot even say that that's manipulation, because if you just like let go of the agenda that you have for that meeting, just listen to the other person and be curious and genuinely give them a compliment on something that you're impressed by. You cannot tell me that there's nothing you could say. Like, there's always something that people do well and that they probably worked hard on. For instance, someone showing you some slides, easy thing to say is just, wow, this is a well-structured slide, if that's the case. Probably they spent like an hour on making the slide at some point. No one ever said a thing. Well, just give them a compliment on something, or nice clothes that they wear, or how they phrase a certain problem, whatever, it doesn't matter. And you will find that people really respond to that positively. Me with my friends, we're always in the situation where we compliment each other a lot. So for me, it actually comes very natural. But when I focused on it, I realized how happy it makes people if you just credit them for work that they did. And I think since it will work for you, it will also work for others. All right, guys, this has been it for today. Again, I hope you liked the video. I really like the topic. I'm hoping to learn more about it. The realization of people actually being alive, having egos, having ambitions is mind-blowing. It shouldn't be, but it is, because we are living in a pretty egocentric world, and it's sometimes hard to step out of that and look into other people's perspectives for a bit. I hope this has inspired you. Let me know in the comments what you think about it, if you think you can use it. And I know that there's a lot of discussion about the manipulation kind of thing, especially about the full book, the 48 Rules of Power. I didn't see it like that. Robert Greene kind of tries to explain that you shouldn't see it like that. But let me know what you think. If you like the video, and don't forget to have a nice day.